a familiar and famous guest back with us today, William Henry. William Henry is the author of so many fabulous books, and everything William Henry has written is on sale today and through this week in the unknowncountry.com bookstore. As you know, you can't get William Henry's books except from us and directly from William. These books are extraordinary books. They are very, very unique. They are spiral bound. They are self-published, handmade books by William Henry. And it is an extremely special group of books. There's nothing like these in the world in terms of the information. And wow, what information. So go to the unknowncountry.com bookstore and get into William Henry. If you are following along with William's work, the latest is Oracle of the Illuminati. None of the books require reading in order. They're all independently informative. And what information. William, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Whitley, very much, and congratulations on being out on the radio waves again.
Yeah, well, it's exciting. As time goes on, we'll get more and more stations, and we will be publishing, of course, on the website every station that comes online and giving them all a nice plug on that enormous website, if you can believe it. 25 million hits a month, 400,000 people coming to the website every month. Fabulous. So it's great publicity for the stations, too, and everybody's really excited about it.
Oh, yeah, it's phenomenal. Truly, congratulations once again.
Well, thanks. And now let's start talking. First, we have a lot of listeners today who've probably never heard of you before, and I want you to tell them what you are. What is an investigative mythologist?
An investigative mythologist is a term that I coined for myself. I look back into ancient myths, legends, and scripture for evidence that perhaps cycles or patterns are repeating themselves. For example, right now we're many of us in the metaphysical community are setting our sights on this all-important date of December 2012 as a time when a massive 26,000-year cosmic cycle comes to a close. And part of what I'm interested in knowing is what are the duties, the responsibilities, the opportunities that are latent within this time that we're all living within right now, and how can we best take advantage of this time? And part of the answer, I feel, is by looking back into the ancient myths, legends, and scripture for direction, because they will reveal to us the steps that we can take as individuals and also as collectively.
So, what you're trying to do is shed light in a very dark corner of our future that's really right around the corner.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, what I've found is...
Well, tell us, just a minute, exactly what this... You referred to a 26,000-year cycle. What exactly is this cycle about?
Well, it's about, it's called the precession of the equinoxes is the technical term for it, and it's a natural cycle that our sun and solar system makes around the galactic center of our Milky Way galaxy. Metaphysically speaking, what we're told is that 13,000 years of this journey is spent in darkness, 13,000 years of it is spent in light. And we're right on the cusp, if you will, the edge of a new age of light, an age of illumination, when truly magnificent things can begin to happen.
Well, now, what's interesting about this is you say it's divided into two 13,000-year segments. Well, 13,000 years ago, there was an awful lot happening on this Earth, specifically the Ice Age that had been going on for 100,000 years was ending in a very chaotic period of floods and collapsing glaciers and ages-old areas that had been inhabited by human beings being flooded by the rising sea levels. So it was a time of incredible chaos. Are we going to be expecting the same thing to happen again?
That's quite conceivable. And in fact, there's tremendous evidence that suggests that we're in that period right now as we speak.
Well, just last week, there was an extraordinary piece of evidence that appeared. Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution announced that the Gulf Stream was failing. The most prestigious scientific oceanographic organization in the world, and they are saying that they've never seen anything like what's happening on their instruments before. So, now, but there's more.
There is more, and it's also important to point out that during that same time that the time period of approximately 13,000 years ago, there's various researchers that point to that as a time of cataclysmic destruction of a civilization. Many attribute this to the myth and legend of Atlantis, and also the preservation of knowledge in various repositories around the planet.
Right.
And attached to those then are prophecies that say that at appointed times those halls or repositories will be revealed. And that's one of the things that I look to at this time as a revelation or a reckoning, an awareness that we've been through this before. Our civilization has reached advanced degrees. We've then lost our place in the cosmos, and now we're culminating right now in a time of transition where we're reclaiming that ancient technology, and we'll be once again able to use it.
Now, when you say ancient technology, what do you mean?
Well, when you look into any of the myths and legends in Scripture from virtually any culture and civilization, you find one common denominator. In addition to stories about a great flood or a terrible celestial cataclysm that destroyed in the ancient civilization, you also find stories of a gate, of entrance ways that the gods and goddesses used to come and go from the earth. And I feel that what we're ultimately looking for is the recovery of the secrets of those gates and how to use them.
Now, this, of course, is what your life work is about.
Yes.
And where are you now? Where would these gates be? Let's start with that.
Well, you go back to, for example, Plato, the Greek philosopher who reintroduced the story of Atlantis to the Western mind. He tells that if you could see the true Earth from a distance or from afar, it would appear as a 12-angled pyramid, what we call a dodecahedron. Now, that's an incredible statement that he's making because at first it supposes that either he himself has found some manner of seeing the true Earth from afar, presumably from Earth's orbit or in some form of a spiritual vision, or that this knowledge had been given to him by someone who had seen Earth from that vantage point. It's quite possible that Plato derived that knowledge from the Egyptians who shared a similar belief. But what they said is that each of the 12 points on that dodecahedron, each of the 12 gateway centers, if you will, was guarded by a serpent. And the object of part of our quest in Earth life is to escape the cycle of earthly incarnation, perhaps by leaving or exiting Earth through one of these gateway locations.
So, it seems like a really fantastic thing to say. Are you saying that people might be able to leave Earth? Where would they go?
Well, to various points throughout the solar system. You see various stories that point to the Pleiades, for example.
You mean throughout the universe?
Throughout the universe,
yeah.
Yes. There's tremendous connections between Earth and Mars in terms of these gateway stories as well. So maybe they're not going that far into the universe, but within our own solar system.
And we're certainly finding some remarkable things on Mars just recently. This is Whitley Strieber. It's Dreamland. We'll be right back with my friend William Henry, one of the oracles of our age. And now you can get every one of his books for $1 off. These privately published volumes are an unknowncountry.com exclusive. And right now, the price of this incredibly valuable information has never been better. Click on that store tab now because we cannot allow these prices to last long, and you need William Henry and his information. Crop circles, whatever they are, their beauty lifts the spirit. And now you can experience this beauty every day of your life with our new 2004 Crop Circle calendar. Every month brings you another miraculous image and also information about the circle depicted and some words of wisdom from the great writings of the ages. Now, get $2 off this unknowncountry.com exclusive, but you have to hurry because supplies are limited. Go to unknowncountry.com and click on that store tab now. This is Whitley Strieber. It's Dreamland. I'm talking with William Henry, the world's only investigative mythologist. He investigates the myths of the past in order to determine the stories that people were trying to tell us about a lost human past. Really fascinating stuff. William, before we left the air, we were just beginning to talk about some of the about the relationship between Earth and Mars, and tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, when you go back into the Sumerian myths, especially those interpreted by Zecharia Sitchin, their creation myths tell of a terrible celestial cataclysm that occurred within our solar system. No one knows how long ago, perhaps as many as billions of years ago, when a former planet that inhabited the region that is currently occupied by our asteroid belt was destroyed. This planet called Tiamat, the watery dragon of chaos, or the great mother of love, was shattered. She was split in two, and one half of this planet became the asteroid belt. The other half of the planet became Earth, or as Zecharia Sitchin says, Earth is Tiamat reincarnated. Well, within that story is also the hint that Mars was one of the other planets that was involved in this cataclysm, as was a mysterious world called Nibiru. And it was presumably that cataclysm that rendered Mars the lifeless world that we're finding today, a world that may have one time actually preserved or generated life, suddenly became lifeless. And it's attributed to this celestial cataclysm as the reason for its demise.
Well, William, that is, it's awesome stuff, especially because of the fact that we're getting so much stuff from Mars recently, like from the Mars Express. Have you been following the discoveries that are being made on Mars?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just absolutely blown away by what's coming back there. It's just part of an overall kind of symphony, if you will, of information that's coming together all at one time. Getting back to the 2012 idea we've been speaking of, the Mayans had made this prediction 2,300 years ago that the year 2012 would usher in an age of new beginnings, a cosmogenesis, if you will. And another of the featured events of this prediction, the 2012 prediction, is that what they described as a serpent rope will emerge from the center of our Milky Way galaxy. Now, Mayan scholar John Major Jenkins makes the point, and I agree with him and have had many conversations with him about this, is that serpent rope is actually what modern scientists call a stargate or a wormhole. And it's just absolutely amazing to me that here we are at this time collecting all this incredible data from Mars, at the same time that scientists are on the cutting edge of our physics. They're telling us that we may be able to actually build these gateways or stargates into other realms that were talked about so long ago by Mayan prophets and others.
Now, this is the amazing thing about your work. You're actually not talking theoretically, you're talking practically.
Right.
Tell us, give us an idea of what they built in the past, what you feel they built.
What they built over and over again were these temple medical facilities, if you will. And what would happen there is that an individual initiate would come to one of these places. They would undergo a phenomenal transformation on the mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional level, where they would be prepared to step through a gateway into other places around the planet or within our solar system and beyond. when we look at a place like Babylon, for example, in the ancient world, the Tower of Babel is one of our favorite stories in Sunday school, and it's one of the most important warnings that the church gives as well. Originally, the story is told that humankind gathered together to build the Babel, which meant the gate to God. But at that time, God had decided that he didn't want company, and that the Babel Tower was smashed. Humanity was separated by language. After that time, the Hebrew scribes were told that the word Babel no longer meant gate. It meant nonsense or confusion. And it's at that moment that the secrets of the gate to God were not forever lost, but have been lost for the past almost 4,000 years.
Now, who was God? Where was this place?
This place is in present-day Iraq.
Well, I know, but who was the God they were going to?
The God they were going to was Yahweh, the Hebrew God Yahweh, who is described as one of a group of extraterrestrial beings, if you will, administrators of the earth, and is clearly, according to some, not the actual creator God of the universe, but rather an administrative type God.
Now, this is so many millions of miles away from our conventional thinking. What drew you to these conclusions?
Well, it started when I was in college. I read in 1982 there was an international bestseller called Holy Blood, Holy Grail, written by Michael Bagent, Richard Lee, and Henry Lincoln, which opened my eyes for the very first time, and I'll have to say opened my heart as well, that there is indeed a whole nother history of humanity, a whole nother way of approaching the mysteries that has been literally covered up for millennia. And what has been covered up is what I consider to be the true history of the human race, our creation, our interaction with extraterrestrial beings who are probably actually advanced forms of ourselves, who came to Earth.
When you say advanced forms of ourselves, that's a huge statement. You're saying that human beings started elsewhere and they were more advanced forms of us.
Yes.
Now, why would they create less advanced forms here on Earth?
Well, this is part of the conflict between the gods that, especially for me, was pointed out in the works of Sitchin, where we're told the story of two half-brothers, one called Enki, who in the Sumerian myth seeks to uplift humanity even to the level of the gods in the status as they existed how many thousands of years ago, and also to even go beyond the abilities of the gods. He's opposed by his half-brother, whose name is Enlil, who seeks to put the brakes on the human form, to keep us at the level more of slaves and sex objects, especially on the earth plane. And so this inherent conflict has gone on from the very beginning, where one seeks to uplift us into the stars, the other seeks to control and to manipulate us.
And the result of this is that we are kind of kept in a state of almost of helplessness or blindness, because while they fight over what happens to us. Is that
right? We're essentially the swords in their battles, and it's the Gnostic viewpoint that was shared by, for example, the earliest and first Christians, that the earth was basically a prison for the soul.
You can learn an awful lot more about William Henry at williamhenry.net and about his conference the 15th and 16th of February in Los Angeles. Get in on this revolution in thought that's taking place. It's quite fascinating. This is Whitley Strieber. It's Dreamland. We'll be right back. My friend William Henry, one of the oracles of our age, and now you can get every one of his books for $1 off. These privately published volumes are an unknowncountry.com exclusive, and right now the price of this incredibly valuable information has never been better. Click on that store tab now, because we cannot allow these prices to last long, and you need William Henry and his information. Crop circles, whatever they are, their beauty lifts the spirit. And now you can experience this beauty every day of your life with our new 2004 Crop Circle calendar. Every month brings you another miraculous image and also information about the circle depicted and some words of wisdom from the great writings of the ages. Now, get $2 off this unknowncountry.com exclusive, but you have to hurry because supplies are limited. Go to unknowncountry.com and click on that store tab now. This is Whitley Strieber. It's Dreamland. We're talking with William Henry. Quite amazing. You just touched on the Gnostics, and this is from William's new book, Oracle of the Illuminati, which is mind-bending, like all of William's books. If you want explosive information to come into your life, really extraordinary stuff. New thinking, real new thinking. Well, this is where to go, and the beauty of it is the unknowncountry.com store, which has a special William Henry section just devoted to William's books, has a sale on everything in that section, including his new one, Oracle of the Illuminati. Apropos of what we were just talking about, I immediately opened the book to a page that I want to read from it, and William, I want to ask you to comment on this. Now, this is incredible stuff, folks. Listen. According to the Gnostics, during the travails described in the hypostasis of the archons, and we'll ask them what that is in a moment, the true blue God, observing these events from the pleroma, decides to help humankind, who, though unknowingly and helplessly trapped in evil and corrupt matter, nonetheless contains a spark of divinity, which longs to rejoin the Godhead, if only it could escape the body and the earth. Now, the interesting thing about this is a description of the conventional wisdom about the journey of the human soul to God, the desire to reach heaven, just stated in a totally different way, William. Now, what is this? Who were the Gnostics? What are we talking about here?
We're talking about the very first Christians. These would have been the people that Jesus and his disciples interacted with more than likely or more often than not in Alexandria, the city in Egypt where East and West met, which was a university center, a center of commerce and trading, a port city that saw just a tremendous gathering of the text from the ancient world, from Egypt, from Samaria, from India, from Mongolia, all coming together, attempting to put together a clear picture of the soul's predicament in its incarnation on earth. And one of the key documents that was written around the 3rd century was the text you just referenced, the Hypostasis of the Archons, which is also called the Reality of the Rulers. And this is essentially the creation text that more than likely Jesus would have subscribed to in his time and probably would have authorized its teaching. And what it says is that the human body was created as a container by beings who were called archons or rulers, but whom today people in the UFO community refer to as the Greys. Automatons, not lifeless, but rather soulless beings who are jealous of a divine particle, as it's called in these texts, that is part of the human makeup. We have it, they don't, they want it from us, and all of earth life is controlled by these archons, according to the Gnostics, who seek to keep us distracted from achieving our spiritual potential. They do this by keeping us locked onto material concerns and enslaved in false beliefs.
Let me ask you, why don't they have it? Why wouldn't every one of God's creatures contain this?
That's a very good question, but it seems that they were created for a different function, that they're not really considered to be spiritual beings as you and I are. I think of them as almost robotic. It would be as if our computers, which were right now on the verge of artificial intelligence, if all of a sudden the mass computer brain decided that it didn't have this divine particle. It achieves a level of consciousness where it has awareness of its existence and its predicament that it lacks this special something that the human being has.
You know, that is really, really interesting, and it's interesting in the light of, as you know, of course, I'm a person who's had close encounters. I wrote the book Communion about my close encounters, and I've never made any secret of them, and I've never said that I knew what they were all about, except that they were darned unusual. However, when you say robotic and yet somehow incredibly jealous, that's what I saw. Mm-hmm. That's what they were like. They were oozing with a kind of jealous resentment. And this is something that everybody, not everybody, but very many people who are involved in these close encounters will see. But also at the same time, I was treated violently. They seemed to be very interested in, as they are in all of these close encounter cases, with human sexual material. I was also put on a kind of there was a very spiritual side of it as well. So, and uplifting in a certain way. It wasn't all terrible. So, how do you respond to that? Are you saying that they've kind of been here forever, or?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, is that when you actually look into the libraries of the people that were alive at the time that Jesus was presumably walking around Palestine and Alexandria, this is the material that he and his cohorts, his conspirators, if you will, were reading and writing. And what I'm so, I guess the word is ecstatic about, is that here we have source material coming from the people at that time who are experiencing the same thing and asking the same questions that many of us are asking today, especially those with the deep interest that we share in the UFO question. Why are they here? What is their relationship with us? And if it's true that we're being controlled by them, how do we escape that control? These are the questions that were burning in their minds at that time, and was certainly the topic of conversation. And it's quite alarming, in my opinion, to see the extent to which the religious and political authorities, ever since the 1950s, have gone to keep this kind of material from becoming, quote-unquote, mainstream thought.
Now, why do they do that? Because what you're talking about, of course, is an ages-old problem. I just had on this radio program a few weeks ago a woman named Angela Michael, who had been to Rennes-le-Château in southern France, as you have been, which is the hiding place of a certain amount of this information, apparently, of the Templar treasure. And she thinks she actually found the spot where it's hidden. And and this is, of course, the story of tell us a little bit of the story of Rennes-le-Château first, and then we can go on into what may be there.
Well, earlier I mentioned that Plato said that if you could see the true Earth from afar, it would appear as a 12-angled pyramid.
Right.
And that there were holes or gates in each of those 12 locations. Well, Rennes-le-Château is one of those locations, according to some. It is an original place of the gate, and it will once again become a gateway, if you will. And the myth and legend of that area is that it's been a repository of secrets, or a place that everyone from the Visigoths to the Nazis to the Catholic Church has been attempting to either recover or to suppress whatever it is that's hidden at Rennes-le-Château. And what is there is open to wide speculation. Some say that a priest in the 1890s who really put the place on the map in the modern world, one Berenguer Saunier, while making repairs on the Church of Mary Magdalene at Rennes-le-Château, made a discovery of a cache of parchments. And some say that these parchments contained the genealogy of Jesus and Mary Magdalene, of their royal bloodline, that it may have actually contained a map of sorts that leads to billions of dollars of gold, a secret library once possessed by Jesus and Mary Magdalene that would be every bit as important as the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls or the Nag Hammadi library. The imagination can run wild with this because there's so much evidence of these major powers seeking the secrets there and documentation about what it is that they're actually seeking.
You can learn more about William Henry at williamhenry.net and go to his LA event in Woodland Hills. Learn all about it on his website. This is Whitley Strieber. It's Dreamland. We'll be right back. My friend William Henry, one of the oracles of our age, and now you can get every one of his books for $1 off. These privately published volumes are an unknowncountry.com exclusive, and right now the price of this incredibly valuable information has never been better. Click on that store tab now, because we cannot allow these prices to last long, and you need William Henry and his information. Crop circles, whatever they are, their beauty lifts the spirit. And now you can experience this beauty every day of your life with our new 2004 Crop Circle calendar. Every month brings you another miraculous image and also information about the circle depicted and some words of wisdom from the great writings of the ages. Now, get $2 off this unknowncountry.com exclusive, but you have to hurry because supplies are limited. Go to unknowncountry.com and click on that store tab now. This is Whitley Strieber. It's Dreamland. We're back. We're talking to William Henry. You can get William Henry's books from the unknowncountry.com bookstore. Unknown Country is the biggest edge science and edge news website in the world. It's a highly credible website. Our news editor, Ann Strieber, is extremely careful to be sure that it is presenting every day news of the extraordinary and news of the edge that you have reason to entertain might be possible. No hoaxes allowed on this website. Daily news of the edge, a free newsletter, but the best part of it, you can subscribe to unknowncountry.com. It's very cheap. It's 13 cents a day. You keep the website going. It has no outside advertising, no pop-ups to bother you. Putting your name in our email for our email newsletter will not get you spammed. It's an extraordinary place to be, the unknowncountry.com website. For example, this week, our subscribers get to listen to an interview with a renowned conspiracy theorist and investigator, Jim Marrs, considered probably the leading Kennedy assassination investigator in the world, who talks about some of the most wildest things you have ever heard. He's found a town here in the United States where people have been having close encounters in groups and as a community for 50 years and keeping it secret. He talks about them and their experiences literally for the first time in our subscriber section. So subscribe to unknowncountry.com right now. Go to unknowncountry.com, click on the subscribe tab. Now let's get back to William Henry, Oracle of the Illuminati. We were talking before we left the air about the suppression of information and where that information might be and what it might consist of. And William, I have a question for you. We talked about it possibly consisting of parchments, of gold, of various other things like that. But could it not also be technology, a gateway, a literal gateway? And the reason I ask this is that when Angela McCall found the spot where this alleged Templar treasure is hidden, the reaction was at first very open, and then the locals began to resist her presence there and went so far as to change the topology of the area to disguise what she had seen originally and taken pictures of. And I thought to myself when I heard that, my, this is maybe something that can't be moved. In other words, it can't be rehidden. And maybe it's not only parchments or gold or something like that information. Maybe it's also a thing or something emplaced in this at this gateway point. How do you react to that?
I'm absolutely convinced that that's so. One of my books is called Blue Apples, which is the search for that very gate. And my presentation of the documentation and evidence that supports that conclusion, I'm convinced that based upon the fact that, you have dinosaur fields right next door to the place. You have the Pyrenees washing down incredible elements from high altitudes. You've got the very stories that the locals tell about this place, this heavily fortified village in the ancient world that possessed some incredible secret that predated everybody that even came there in modern history.
Now, what kind of things do the locals tell about it?
Well, they describe it as a place, for example, where the Knights Templar built hospitals because there was something in the soil there that had a healing quality. It's very much like Lourdes in that respect. And this is one of the tip-offs to me that you're describing an oracular center, a place where the oracle, where the gate was located between one realm and another realm, and where one could part the veil that exists between the world above and the realms below. That is Rennes-le-Château. It is one of those places where the upper worlds and the lower worlds meet, where an individual can be walking along the surface of the earth and suddenly vanish as if they walked into thin air. They've entered one of these interdimensional gateways, if you will.
Now, has this ever been seen?
It's not that I can point to directly. What I've been able to find is the stories that describe this, and these are similar to stories that you find in myth and scripture all over the planet, as a matter of fact.
That's absolutely fascinating. Now, what would happen to somebody who did this? Where would they be? What would they see?
Well, having never experienced it personally, I know that one of the things, well, first of all, depending upon the spiritual vibration, if you will, of the individual that's experiencing the gate, it could be a tremendously terrifying experience. One would think that they're actually going insane.
How have you wanted to experience this, William?
Oh, absolutely. And what I'm trying to do is gather as much knowledge as I can preparatory to having such an experience. I believe that what we're doing now in modern cutting-edge physics is we're recreating these gates of the gods. And in fact, we must go back and look at these stories, especially from the spiritual point of view, because modern science is almost completely focused on the exoteric aspect of these gates, the physical components of them. What are they going to be made of? And what they describe as this exotic matter that can be harmful to humans. And they're looking for a way that they can line the tubes of these gateways or stargates, if you will,
yes,
with some form of a protective mechanism that will keep us from being harmed by this exotic matter.
This is Whitley Strieber. It's Dreamland. We'll be right back. My friend William Henry, one of the oracles of our age, and now you can get every one of his books for $1 off. These privately published volumes are an unknowncountry.com exclusive, and right now the price of this incredibly valuable information has never been better. Click on that store tab now, because we cannot allow these prices to last long, and you need William Henry and his information. Crop circles, whatever they are, their beauty lifts the spirit. And now you can experience this beauty every day of your life with our new 2004 Crop Circle calendar. Every month brings you another miraculous image and also information about the circle depicted and some words of wisdom from the great writings of the ages. Now, get $2 off this unknowncountry.com exclusive, but you have to hurry because supplies are limited. Go to unknowncountry.com and click on that store tab now. Well, this is Whitley Strieber. It's Dreamland. We're back with news from unknowncountry.com, read by Ann Strieber, editor of the largest edge news website in the world.
This week in the news, UFOs have been seen by aviation techs in Mexico and by witnesses standing in their gardens in the UK. In Mexico, 2 witnesses shot 3 separate videos of UFO at the Mexico City International Airport all on the same day. They're familiar with planes, so they know that's not what they were seeing. They saw both round and cigar-shaped craft. Now in England, one man saw a conventional round UFO. But the other one saw strange jellyfish-like creatures in the sky, and another person there caught them on video. These jellyfish-like shapes have been seen before, although rarely. One place they were seen was Guatemala many years ago. We also reported on Unknown Country that chupacabras have been seen living in abandoned mines in Chile. For some reason, chupacabras are only seen in Spanish-speaking countries. Why is this? Are they smaller versions of Bigfoot? One big difference is that chupacabras are meat eaters, and Bigfoot is a vegetarian. With the recent hot summers and harsh winters, people are beginning to face the fact that global warming is real. Scientists now think that Neanderthals were killed off by the cold of our last ice age, but that our ancestors barely managed to hang on until it was over. The question is, can we do it again? Once an ice age sets in, what makes it go away? We reported that scientists have now found the mechanisms that cause and end global warming. What we now need to learn is how to slow down one part of the cycle and speed up the other. The FDA recently reported that we don't have to worry about mad cow disease in this country because it has ordered no more slaughtering of downer cows that can no longer walk. But the man who actually slaughtered the cow that turned out to have the disease says it wasn't a downer and the government is lying. This means that every single cow needs to be tested for us to be safe, and this isn't being done. He says he's even been threatened by the government. And guess what? This story didn't come from some conspiracy website. It came from the New York Times.
This has been Ann Strieber for UnknownCountry.com, Daily News of the Edge. This is Whitley Strieber. It's Dreamland. We'll be right back. Crop circles, whatever they are, their beauty lifts the spirit. And now you can experience this beauty every day of your life with our new 2004 Crop Circle calendar. Every month brings you another miraculous image and also information about the circle depicted and some words of wisdom from the great writings of the ages. Now, get $2 off this UnknownCountry.com exclusive, but you have to hurry because supplies are limited. Go to UnknownCountry.com and click on that store tab now. This is Whitley Strieber. It's Dreamland. We're back with William Henry, his website, williamhenry.net. Don't miss him in Los Angeles at February 17th and 18th at the Woodland Hills Hilton. You can get details at williamhenry.net. All of his books are on sale in the special William Henry section of the UnknownCountry.com bookstore. Go there today. Enjoy this special sale. This is such extraordinary information. William's books are only available on our website, I believe, on his website. These are handmade books. William publishes these books himself. You can't get them in stores. Do not miss William Henry, and especially do not miss this sale. It won't be on very long. William Henry's books at the UnknownCountry.com bookstore. Now, William, we were talking about the fact that modern physics mostly focuses on the kind of physical aspects of these gateways. Now, are you talking about things like wormholes, which the word the physicists use?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, well, that's absolutely fascinating stuff because it's beginning to be realized by physicists that doing this, actually a wormhole, what it is, folks, is if you can imagine the universe as a great kind of plane, a wormhole is something that pulls two places that might be unimaginable distances apart together, kind of above the plane of the universe. So if you can imagine putting your hand down into the plane of the universe and taking 2 points and kind of making a wrinkle holding the 2 points together, that's a wormhole. So that for you, at one end of the wormhole, the distance of the 50 or 100 light years between the two ends of the wormhole becomes nothing. And you walk through what William is referring to as a stargate, literally, into another part of the universe. Now, we're talking about this as a physical reality. In fact, at the CERN Super Collider, physicists are able to do experiments that create in less than a nanosecond. Last time wormholes. They have done this just I think last September. And so we're not far from doing this. And when you talk about the spiritual aspect of it, what are you really talking about? Why does there need to be a spiritual component? Why can't we just send an astronaut through a wormhole in a spacesuit?
Well, because we may be able to. We may be able to design a suit, a cloak, if you will, that will protect us from this experience. And in fact, that's what is described in many of the Gateway stories. I refer to this as the cloak of the Illuminati, the cloak of the illumined ones, because in so many stories, whenever a person, Elijah, Enoch, even Jesus, was being initiated into the Gateway myths, there is reference to a cloak that is put on by the individual. And in fact, this was one of the main features of the Gnostic text as well. But these stories make clear that this is actually a cloak of light that is put on us. And it has more spiritual attributes than it does physical. And that's the point that I'm hoping to make to modern scientists as they engage in the design of these wormholes of the future, is that the ancients didn't focus on lining the tubes of those stargates or wormholes with protective mechanisms. They focused on transforming the consciousness of the individual that was going to enter those wormholes. The focus was more on the inner rather than the outer.
Now, why would that be?
I think it's because so much of it is about the manipulation of matter, and it's about putting oneself in resonance or in attunement, if you will, with all of creation, so that we have the ability to instantly manifest our desires. There seems to be that component that is so vital, because as we enter these wormholes, it seems that the primary element or the primary ingredient of which they're composed is love itself. And so only love can exist in our heart as we traverse these gateways, because if we think a thought of fear, we will instantly manifest that fear, and that presumably can lead to a dangerous circumstance in traversing the wormhole.
Now, what you're saying here is that at this level, there is a link between the spiritual and, if you will, the scientific and technological. The one cannot progress without the other.
Exactly.
Why is that, William?
I think it's because we're right now experiencing love at its basis vibration here, when, for example, the Gnostics always spoke of an invisible realm out of which the visible realm was created. And that invisible realm seems to be composed of an even higher or finer vibration of love than we've heretofore been able to experience on Earth. And we're all, in this instance, fish out of water as we're inhabiting these containers or these bodies that we think of, that we define ourselves by. And what the Gnostics were asking us to do was to take our focus off of the physical body and put it onto a divine essence, a divine particle, or a divine element within us instead.
Now, you write in Oracle of the Illuminati, in Gnostic teaching, Jesus emerges as composite salvation hero who possessed intimate details of the sacred science of antiquity that fused art, science, philosophy, and religion into an experience of cosmic proportions that awakened the soul. In other words, a science of the soul, William. Mm-hmm. That's what you're talking about.
Yes, exactly. That's what it's at the core of it. That's what's contained within, or referred to within, these Gnostic texts and elsewhere. And this was the primary responsibility, even, as well as the goal of the original and first Christians, the followers of Jesus, was to assemble that sacred science of the soul.
Now, an experience of cosmic proportions that awakened the soul. What is that?
Well, that would be the wormhole itself right there, would be the experience of cosmic proportions, when from out of nothingness the gateway appears, and now we're connected to all the other realms of creation.
Now, when we look at this in terms of physics, in terms of actually doing this in the physical world, what the way these these micro-sized, tiny gateways, if you will, or wormholes, are being created in a super collider is as a side effect of the collision of highly energetic particles. And the wormholes only last for not a nanosecond even. I mean, they last for so little, just a tiny amount of time, and they've only been so far really detected indirectly. Now, this is a purely physical process being carried out by a bunch of men and women just like you and me who are not awakened any more than the rest of us.
Maybe, maybe not.
Well, what makes you say that?
Well, when you look into the stories of J. Robert Oppenheimer, for example, many of the major figures in the Manhattan Project, historically, we're told these are ordinary people like you and I. Far from it. These were people that were having dreams that they were alchemists in the Middle Ages. These were people that were exploring the secrets of alchemy. And it's possible that the people at CERN, well, we're told one biography, are actually a whole different sort of people than we can even imagine.
And why do you say that?
Well,
do you have any evidence of that? Because I'm curious.
No, I haven't read the biographies of them, but I'm saying that I'm extrapolating from these other enormous projects that we've gathered together to create and to perform. It's probably the same thing with a lot of the people that work at NASA that are involved in the Mars project now.
This is Whitley Strieber. It's Dreamland. We'll be right back. My friend William Henry, one of the oracles of our age, and now you can get every one of his books for $1 off. These privately published volumes are an unknowncountry.com exclusive, and right now the price of this incredibly valuable information has never been better. Click on that store tab now, because we cannot allow these prices to last long, and you need William Henry and his information. Crop circles, whatever they are, their beauty lifts the spirit. And now you can experience this beauty every day of your life with our new 2004 Crop Circle calendar. Every month brings you another miraculous image and also information about the circle depicted and some words of wisdom from the great writings of the ages. Now, get $2 off this unknowncountry.com exclusive, but you have to hurry because supplies are limited. Go to unknowncountry.com and click on that store tab now. This is Whitley Strieber. It's Dreamland. We're back with William Henry. Oracle of the Illuminati is his latest groundbreaking mind bender. You can get it from unknowncountry.com, from williamhenry.net. You can go to his new event with Lawrence Gardner and John Major Jenkins, two very, very major figures in the area that William Henry is interested in, February 17th and 18th at the Woodland Hills Hilton in Los Angeles. Go to williamhenry.net to find out more about it. It will be well worth going to. You'll hear Lawrence Gardner talking, I'm sure, about white powder gold. We're going to ask William a little bit about that in just a minute. And John Major Jenkins doesn't speak that often, a really fascinating man. Get involved in this revolution of thinking that's going on about the true spiritual nature of mankind. Open your mind to it. Explore it at least. Take a look at it. What a fascinating, extraordinary development in human thinking. Amazing. And William, tell us a little bit about Lawrence Gardner, will you, who's going to be at Woodland Hills with you. He's been on this radio program many times. He is, like you, one of our very most popular guests, and he's involved in working with a substance that he thinks may be very, very key to all of this, that it may physically change the human body and make the human body into itself a kind of gateway.
Yes, Lawrence is gathering a tremendous body of evidence that supports his contention or theory, if you will, that Moses and the Israelites during the Exodus from Egypt had access to technology well beyond anything we've heretofore credited them with possessing. They possessed the white powder gold, the manna, that came from a place called the Field of the Blessed, perhaps another dimension just adjacent to our own, that was a substance that fed the light body of the Pharaoh. Now, that's a mouthful right there, because right there it's flying in the face of 1,000, 2,000 years of biblical scholarship. But he's forcing us, if you listen to the evidence and the arguments, which are truly tremendous, he's forcing us to completely throw out the book on the Old Testament and introducing to us a whole new way of looking at even the New Testament.
So it's really then a whole new way of looking at all of this, at everything, at all of our past, and at what we are.
Yeah, everything we know is wrong, in effect, according to this theory. If we follow it through, Jesus, when he talks about the white stone, for example, in the book of Revelation, the white stone of manna is this white powder substance that Lawrence is talking about. In this view, Jesus is an alchemist. This is a person who had access to the science of the soul that we've mentioned, that is more Albert Einstein than he is the home improvement guy on cable television. He's not a simple carpenter.
You're saying that people like Moses and Jesus were really they weren't simply, they were miraculous beings in the sense that they came encoded, if you will, with the key information from the good side of this struggle in the universe and a way for mankind to ascend to heaven.
Absolutely. And this is where my research dovetails with Lawrence's, because I've presented evidence that there is a missing piece to the Ark of the Covenant, which of course was constructed under the supervision of Moses, that actually held this white powder substance. The research that I present suggests that there was a pillar that was attached to the Ark of the Covenant, an antenna-like device. And it was this device that was the manna machine that milled or churned this divine substance out of the ether, similarly to the way cream is churned out of milk. That they had the ability to alter all this out here and bring this miraculous substance out of thin air.
And what would the miraculous substance have been once it was brought, as you say, out of thin air? What would they have had?
Well, they had a food that assured them immortality. It fed their light bodies.
If it assured them immortality, where are they now?
Well, this is where, again, Lawrence's research and mine dovetails, because he shows that the ultimate extension of the white powder process is the opening of stargates and wormholes. So in other words, they had the ability to throw this stardust, if you will, before them and open gateways into other realms.
In other words, there are people in other realms now.
Yes.
And what could these, one of the things that happens in the close encounter experience is that occasionally you do see people who seem to be from other worlds, actually. And I've seen them, and many people have seen them. Are you saying that these people, I'll tell you, the two that I saw that were just extraordinary men, they seemed to be, they had the most richest faces I've ever seen. They were seemed to me to be amazingly compassionate people. And another one I had a long conversation with that I actually recorded in a book called The Key, that it kind of dovetails a lot with what you and Lawrence are saying. Is that the kind of person? Are they coming back?
They could well be coming back, yes, absolutely. And this evidence and the stories of these gateways have been protected by the ruling political authorities for centuries. But now, once again, it's coming into the open literature. It's the very foundation of a new economy that's developing. And
a whole movement that you are a big part of.
Well, thank you. I mean, I appreciate that. I'm just doing the best I can to try and pull as much of this together as possible.
We haven't touched on the motives, and we're coming up toward the end of our time together. So we have about a minute or so left on the motives of those who hide this. Why don't you tell us a little bit about why we're actually so confused in your terminology, and who is hiding this and why?
Well, it's gone on for centuries after centuries. For example, Lawrence makes the case, and I go along with it, that Moses was actually the Egyptian pharaoh Akhenaten, who was intent on revealing the secrets of light to the masses, to building a religion based upon those secrets. Well, the ruling priesthood in Egypt at the time said, well, wait a minute, if you do that, it's going to eliminate the need for all of our bureaucracy of gods here. And they actually ran Akhenaten out of town and murdered his brother or his cousin Tutankhamun, who was a great benefactor of these teachings, and destroyed his temples. The reason was because what Akhenaten was attempting to do as this Moses-like figure was to prepare the human being for the journey across the Red Sea, which is not just a place in the Sinai, but was actually a metaphor for the Milky Way itself, for allowing individuals to escape the cycle of earthly incarnation and return to the center of our Milky Way galaxy and beyond.
And that seems to be a very good place to draw this amazing interview to an end. William Henry, you won't find this anywhere else. Oracle of the Illuminati, all of his incredible books available, the unknowncountry.com store. Learn more from williamhenry.net. This is Whitley Strieber. It's Dreamland. We'll be right back. My friend William Henry, one of the oracles of our age, and now you can get every one of his books for $1 off. These privately published volumes are an unknowncountry.com exclusive, and right now the price of this incredibly valuable information has never been better. Click on that store tab now, because we cannot allow these prices to last long, and you need William Henry and his information. Crop circles, whatever they are, their beauty lifts the spirit. And now you can experience this beauty every day of your life with our new 2004 Crop Circle calendar. Every month brings you another miraculous image and also information about the circle depicted and some words of wisdom from the great writings of the ages. Now, get $2 off this unknowncountry.com exclusive, but you have to hurry because supplies are limited. Go to unknowncountry.com and click on that store tab now. One reporter who loves mysteries is radio's leading science journalist, our own Linda Moulton Howe. She's an Emmy Award-winning TV producer and the reporter and editor for EarthFiles.com, the Internet's most respected edge science website. Today, she has a special report for us on element 115, newly discovered by scientists, but not by Bob Lazar, who's known about it for 15 years. Here she is from Philadelphia, Linda Moulton Howe.
Thanks, Whitley. Back in 1989, I had several phone conversations with an electrical engineer named Robert Lazar. Bob had previously worked at Los Alamos National Laboratory, and from the end of 1988 until March of 1989, he was doing part-time work at a highly classified place called S4, built inside the Papoose Mountains near Groom Lake, Area 51 at Nellis Air Force Base north of Las Vegas. Bob said large engineering bays were dug into the Papoose Mountains and were camouflaged by sand-covered doors that would photograph from satellites like the rest of the sandy hills. Inside those engineering bays, Bob said there were at least 9 disc-shaped spacecraft designated as extraterrestrial. He was assigned to do back engineering on one particular model that seemed to have a highly advanced propulsion system. Bob said that he was told that the fuel was element 115, produced in binary star systems, and was in a stable form that could be held in his hands. And at that time, there was no such thing in our cyclotrons or scientific laboratories as element 115. That element, he said, had the unusual ability to produce antimatter in a special container that powered the craft. Antimatter combined with matter would cause mutual annihilation of protons, neutrons, and electrons, which then releases lots of energy. According to Bob Lazar, only half a pound of the element 115 at S4 could power a spacecraft for about 30 Earth years. More amazing than that, top-secret scientific research had concluded that the enormous energy element 115 could produce was used to distort space and time with strong gravitational fields also generated by the spacecraft. The result was the disk could quickly jump around in the cosmos from point to point rather than the impossibly long travel in light years that current human technology would face. 13 years ago, in 1991, Bob Lazar produced a documentary about his experiences inside S4 with the alleged extraterrestrial craft and propulsion system. Here is a brief excerpt of Bob describing what he learned about the power source that provides the energy needed to warp gravity, space, and time.
The power source of the reactor, which uses element 115 as a fuel, and uses a total annihilation reaction to provide the heat which it converts to energy, making it a compact, lightweight, efficient onboard power source. I've got a couple of quick comments about element 115 for those of you who are interested. By virtue of the way it's used in the reactor, it depletes very slowly, and only 223 grams of 115, which is just under half a pound, can be utilized for a period of 20 to 30 years. This demonstrates the enormous amount of power released when you totally convert matter to energy, which is what happens when antimatter and matter are combined. So back to our power source. Inside the reactor, element 115 is bombarded with a proton, which plugs into the nucleus of the 115 atom and becomes element 116, which immediately decays and releases or radiates small amounts of antimatter. The antimatter is released in a vacuum into a tuned tube, which keeps it from reacting with the matter that surrounds it. It is then directed towards a gaseous matter target at the end of the tube. The matter and antimatter collide and annihilate, totally converting to energy. The heat from this reaction is converted into electrical energy in a near 100% efficient thermoelectric generator. This is a device that converts heat directly into electrical energy.
Now, according to government insiders, all of this was, and still is, kept under a top-secret government order of secrecy in the interest of national security. If it is true that some isotope of element 115 has been maintained in a stable form at S4 Area 51 for decades, it would come as quite a shock to a team of Russian and American scientists who announced on February 1st that they had finally produced a few atoms of element 115 that until now had only been theorized but never observed. It is especially interesting that the scientists deliberately went looking for element 115 because it is supposed to be theoretically in a more stable region of the periodic table of elements. But the scientists found element 115 by slamming atoms of calcium against larger americium atoms at almost the speed of light. The result is so fleeting, so unstable, that the element 115 isotope produced hung around for less than 100 milliseconds before decaying into element 113 and lower elements on the periodic table. This week, I talked with one of the American scientists doing the element 115 research. He is Dr. Joshua Patton, nuclear chemist at the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in Livermore, California, about 60 miles southeast of Berkeley. I asked him why their specific interest in making element 115.
It was an experiment that had been chosen because of its decay then through element 113. So there was a notion at the beginning of the experiment that if we saw a decay of 115, we would also kind of see the decay of 113. And those hadn't been seen before.
And in the hypothesis of these higher elements, isn't it true that on the periodic table that physicists have speculated that there would be a point somewhere around element 115 or maybe higher where there would be more stability and maybe even a longer life?
True. When you're looking at the various isotopes that can be produced of elements 114, 115, 116, even 113, there are some isotopes that have been predicted to have very long half-lives. The region initially, the element initially where that was proposed to have been a region of stability was element 114, but with 10, 11 more neutrons than the isotopes that we have created in previous experiments. But that element 114 with 114 protons was considered this an area where we might see some enhanced stability. But you need to put more neutrons in, and that's a whole other area in terms of deciding what kind of experiment you want to perform.
Mm-hmm.
With the current level of technology and the types of targets and like the americium-243 and the beams that we use, the calcium-48, we can't necessarily quite get there, but we can get close. That's why we've done these experiments. By doing the 115 and the 113 experiment, and in the past with this group, the 116 and 114, we've shown that there is this enhanced area of stability.
Could it reach a point where they are solid and can be held in the hand?
Someday down the road, I think so. If it's true that we find something that is, long enough lived, to hold something in your hand, you would need a significant quantity of these atoms, and we've produced 4 in a month, and it would take you don't have enough time in the rest of the rest of the time in the universe to create enough that you could hold in your hand through these same kinds of production methods. That's why I say in the future technology might allow us advances in terms of how much beam we produce and in the target material, maybe a better way of producing them. But somewhere down the road, there definitely might be a possibility, sure.
And so with advanced technology, you might be able to produce element 115 enough quantity that it could be some kind of solid matter that could be worked with and applied in other ways.
Exactly.
Robert Lazar said in his research at S4, Area 51 in Nevada, that he could pick up a stable form of element 115 used to power the alleged extraterrestrial spacecraft. More about that with Dr. Patton after this break.
Well, thanks very much, Linda. It's absolutely fascinating, and we'll be right back. This is Whitley Strieber. It's Dreamland. The work of Linda Moulton Howe, the amazing work of Linda Moulton Howe, the world's greatest reporter of edge news and edge topics. She has got a website, earthfiles.com. Go there frequently. You will never forget what you find on earthfiles.com. The best website, the best reporting of its kind in the world. Linda Moulton Howe, earthfiles.com. Don't miss a single day. Crop circles, whatever they are, their beauty lifts the spirit. And now you can experience this beauty every day of your life with our new 2004 Crop Circle calendar. Every month brings you another miraculous image and also information about the circle depicted and some words of wisdom from the great writings of the ages. Now, get $2 off this unknowncountry.com exclusive, but you have to hurry because supplies are limited. Go to unknowncountry.com and click on that store tab now. This is Whitley Strieber. It's Dreamland. We're back with Linda Moulton Howe.
I told nuclear chemist Dr. Joshua Patton about Robert Lazar's alleged work more than a decade ago with a stable form of element 115 at the top secret S4 facility in Area 51 at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada. I asked him if he knew anything about such United States government research.
Only from what I've read, probably similar to you in the past week. In my case, just to see what had been published about our current work. I just wanted to see how many articles had been written about the work that we've done so far. But I came across this, and I hadn't read it before. I wasn't familiar with it whatsoever. All I can say is now the 115 we're creating, it lives less than 100 milliseconds.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way that you could ever have enough of what particular isotopes that we've created to hold in your hand with the current production methods that we have.
But if his story was correct and our government has some kind of something from a off-planet source that it's supposed to be identified as a stable form of element 115, it is feasible that something with advanced technology could make solid form of element 115?
Well, only in the sense that our theories now say that, there's this enhanced region of stability. If this, hypothetically, if this story was true, or if it was proved true and accepted by the heavy element science community, it would probably be a form of element 115 that had more neutrons than the ones that we've created.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I can say. If you're talking about element 115 that's stable in the sense that you could hold it in your hand, that's what I would think.
Mm-hmm.
It would have to have more neutrons because in what we know, what theories predicted about the region, you would need to put more neutrons to increase the lifetime or the half-life of the activity to the point where it is stable, where you could, I don't think I'd want to hold it in my hand, but considering it would still be somewhat radioactive, but maybe these things have half-lives of, millions of years. I don't know. That part of the theory and everything like that, I don't know, and it's right now for us in the community doing this production like we're doing with these experiments, we can only go so far. And with what we're seeing the possibility, but everything we've created has very short lifetimes. However, significantly longer than everything else around it, which is why we're calling it this island of stability. We're just on the shoals, we're on the beach, we're getting closer and closer.
And if you had the technology to add neutrons to what you've already been able to see in the collider, you might end up with matter that we know that would be stable enough to sit on a table.
I think the technology would have to be completely different. I think in our current experiments, even if you added more neutrons, you're only still going to produce a certain number of atoms, 10, 15, 20, or whatever. You need, millions and millions and millions of these before you could have something that you could, let alone see, or, put in your hand to hold. So, in terms of, I mentioned this along the lines of what we do. You wouldn't use what we do as a production method.
Mm-hmm.
It's purely an observational sense. Also, along those lines, if it is something that lives as long as, I guess what you're saying, it's nothing we would see. We see the decay of these elements through their radioactive decay, and we can see them because they have such short lifetimes, such short half-lives. So, during the course of an experiment, we expect a decay to occur. If they weren't radioactive and they were stable, we would never see them.
I see.
Because we only see the energy that's given off in their decay. So it's kind of along those lines. If the lifetimes increase, it becomes increasingly more difficult to see them. And that's something that, will be corrected for, and we'll there are other ways of doing these experiments where you're not relying on their radioactivity to see them, but you can separate them other ways in the chance of, seeing them based on if they have longer half-lives. That's when you start producing them and doing chemical experiments, where you can tell by their chemistry if they're element 115. That's in the future. That's nothing for right now, and you definitely wouldn't use our particular method for doing and seeing what we've seen to produce anything like that. From what you've told me in terms of handling it with your hand,
mm-hmm.
you don't want to handle radioactivity with your hand.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if it's something that's stable where there's no concern about radioactivity, and this is just in general, you're not going to have any radioactivity, and therefore you're going to have to use chemistry to identify some chemical method to identify what you have.
I see.
That's only with mass quantities. I mean, in the sense of, something that is stable like that. That's when the chemistry is involved.
And hypothetically, if you were able to take the element 115 and add more neutrons to it, hypothetically, it could become a stable, non-radioactive piece of matter, element 115?
I don't know. Like I said, that'll be something for us to discover. I don't know enough about what the theory predicts about the region to say if that could happen. I don't know if the lifetimes are long enough to get to the point where they're stable and not radioactive.
Dr. Patton says that elements 113 and 115 can now be added to the periodic table of elements, and probably element 116, which is the limit to what atomic physicists have seen so far. After that, he and his colleagues are going to experiment to see if they can find element 118, which will be the outer frontier of elements in human physics. But there is that nagging question. Are there other intelligences out there that are so beyond human knowledge and technology that they can use a special isotope of element 115 that is stable so they can travel in quick jumps around the cosmos? This is Linda Moulton Howe, reporter and editor of EarthFiles.com, reporting for Dreamland.
And this is Whitley Strieber. It is Dreamland, and we will be right back. The work of Linda Moulton Howe, the amazing work of Linda Moulton Howe, the world's greatest reporter of edge news and edge topics. She has got a website, earthfiles.com. Go there frequently. You will never forget what you find on earthfiles.com. The best website, the best reporting of its kind in the world. Linda Moulton Howe, earthfiles.com. Don't miss a single day. Well, that was a really fascinating program. William Henry at its best, and then that remarkable story about Bob Lazar and element 115. 15 years ago, he's talking about it being secret knowledge within the government. Now, scientists outside of the government are creating the very same thing. It's remarkable. Next week, a really big show, the first time ever on Dreamland, the legendary Bud Hopkins will be with us. Bud Hopkins and his wife, Carol Rainey, have written a great new book about alien abductions called Sight Unseen. I have known Bud for many, many years. We've had our ups and downs, and we have, I guess, buried our hatchets, and we are finally becoming friends again, and I think a lot of people are going to be interested to know what it's like when Whitley Strieber finally, after all of these years, interviews the man who kept me sane after I had my close encounter experience in 1985. Bud Hopkins, I'm very proud to have him on the radio program next week. It's been a long road. Also, Jordan Maxwell will be with us in the subscriber section, one of the most fascinating people when it comes to occult knowledge anywhere in this world. Jordan Maxwell has been at it since 1959, and it shows he's a true expert. Go to jordanmaxwell.com to find out more about his great work before next week. It is going to be really, really, really exciting. Very glad. UnknownCountry.com offers daily news of the Edge. It is the largest daily news Edge website in the world for a reason. You can count on UnknownCountry.com to tell the truth about the strangest stories in the world. There is no place in the world quite like it. Go to UnknownCountry.com every day and enjoy daily news of the Edge absolutely free. And if you love it as much as I do, then do what I've done and become a subscriber to UnknownCountry.com. A wealth of additional information, incredible, fascinating videos, audios, new stuff every week. Great coupons in the UnknownCountry.com store, 13 cents a day, and it's worth 10 times as much. Oh, 10 times as much. Do not miss it. A familiar and famous guest back with us today, William Henry. William Henry is the author of so many fabulous books, and everything William Henry has written is on sale today and through this week in the UnknownCountry.com bookstore. As you know, you can't get William Henry's books except from us and from directly from William. These books are extraordinary books. They are very, very unique. They are spiral bound. They are self-published, handmade books by William Henry. And it is an extremely special group of books. There's nothing like these in the world in terms of the information. And wow, what information. So go to the UnknownCountry.com bookstore and get into William Henry. If you are following along with William's work, the latest is Oracle of the Illuminati. None of the books require reading in order. They're all independently informative, and what information. William, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Whitley, very much, and congratulations on being out on the radio waves again.
Yeah, well, it's exciting. As time goes on, we'll get more and more stations, and we will be publishing, of course, on the website every station that comes online and giving them all a nice plug on that enormous website, if you can believe it. 25 million hits a month, 400,000 people coming to the website every month. Fabulous. So it's great publicity for the stations, too, and everybody's really excited about it.
Oh, yeah, it's phenomenal. Truly, congratulations once again.
Well, thanks. And now let's start talking. First, we have a lot of listeners today who've probably never heard of you before, and I want you to tell them what you are. What is an investigative mythologist?
An investigative mythologist is a term that I coined for myself. I look back into ancient myths, legends, and scripture for evidence that perhaps cycles or patterns are repeating themselves. For example, right now where many of us in the metaphysical community are setting our sights on this all-important date of December 2012 as a time when a massive 26,000-year cosmic cycle comes to a close. And part of what I'm interested in knowing is what are the duties, the responsibilities, the opportunities that are latent within this time that we're all living within right now, and how can we best take advantage of this time? And part of the answer, I feel, is by looking back into the ancient myths, legends, and scripture for direction, because they will reveal to us the steps that we can take as individuals and also as collectively.
So, what you're trying to do is shed light in a very dark corner of our future that's really right around the corner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, what I've found is...
Well, tell us just a minute. Exactly what this... You referred to a 26,000-year cycle. What exactly is this cycle about?
Well, it's about, it's called the precession of the equinoxes is the technical term for it, and it's a natural cycle that our sun and solar system makes around the galactic center of our Milky Way galaxy. Metaphysically speaking, what we're told is that 13,000 years of this journey is spent in darkness, 13,000 years of it is spent in light. And we're right on the cusp, if you will, the edge of a new age of light, an age of illumination, when truly magnificent things can begin to happen.
Well, now, what's interesting about this is you say it's divided into two 13,000-year segments. Well, 13,000 years ago, there was an awful lot happening on this Earth, specifically the Ice Age that had been going on for 100,000 years was ending in a very chaotic period of floods and collapsing glaciers and ages-old areas that had been inhabited by human beings being flooded by the rising sea levels. So it was a time of incredible chaos. Are we going to be expecting the same thing to happen again?
That's quite conceivable. And in fact, there's tremendous evidence that suggests that we're in that period right now as we speak.
Well, just last week, there was an extraordinary piece of evidence that appeared. Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution announced that the Gulf Stream was failing. The most prestigious scientific oceanographic organization in the world, and they are saying that they've never seen anything like what's happening on their instruments before. So, now, but there's more.
There is more, and it's also important to point out that during that same time that the time period of approximately 13,000 years ago, there's various researchers that point to that as a time of cataclysmic destruction of a civilization. Many attribute this to the myth and legend of Atlantis, and also the preservation of knowledge in various repositories around the planet.
Right.
And attached to those then are prophecies that say that appointed times those halls or repositories will be revealed. And that's one of the things that I look to at this time is a revelation or a reckoning, an awareness that we've been through this before. Our civilization has reached advanced degrees. We've then lost our place in the cosmos, and now we're culminating right now in a time of transition where we're reclaiming that ancient technology, and we'll be once again able to use it.
Now, when you say ancient technology, what do you mean?
Well, when you look into any of the myths and legends in Scripture from virtually any culture and civilization, you find one common denominator. In addition to stories about a great flood or a terrible celestial cataclysm that destroyed in the ancient civilization. You also find stories of a gate, of entranceways that the gods and goddesses used to come and go from the earth. And I feel that what we're ultimately looking for is the recovery of the secrets of those gates and how to use them.
Now, this, of course, is what your life work is about.
Yes.
And where are you now? Where would these gates be? Let's start with that.
Well, you go back to, for example, Plato, the Greek philosopher who reintroduced the story of Atlantis to the Western mind. He tells that if you could see the true Earth from a distance or from afar, it would appear as a 12-angled pyramid, what we call a dodecahedron. Now, that's an incredible statement that he's making, because at first it supposes that either he himself has found some manner of seeing the true Earth from afar, presumably from Earth's orbit or in some form of a spiritual vision, or that this knowledge had been given to him by someone who had seen Earth from that vantage point. It's quite possible that Plato derived that knowledge from the Egyptians, who shared a similar belief. But what they said is that each of the 12 points on that dodecahedron, each of the 12 gateway centers, if you will, was guarded by a serpent. And the object of part of our quest in Earth